Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Conversation with Sam. Today, our topic of discussion will be about leadership. What does it truly mean to become a leader in today's complex, fast changing world? How must leadership evolve to meet the demands of new generation, emerging technologies, and shifting global order? Drawing from his decades of experience in public policy, innovation, and institution building, Mr. Sam Pitroda will share his perspectives on the qualities that define effective leadership today. So, if you're a student or an aspiring change maker, this session would be insightful for you. So, without wasting much of time, I would now request Mr. Sam Pitroda to address our audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Premvada. Thank you, Upendra. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for participating in this conversation. Premvada and Upendra wanted today to talk about leadership. As you know, we had a conversation earlier on leadership, and I would add to that conversation today, and we'll go into a little deeper dive. As I said earlier, leadership is all about performance. If you perform, people respect you for your leadership. Leadership is also about vision, values, and ultimately it's about communication, so you can communicate your objective, get people excited, break it up into small pieces of work, and then put all of it together to deliver results. It looks very simple, but believe me, it gets very complicated. It's easy to find fault in somebody's leadership, but it's very difficult to practice leadership in its totality. Leadership requires not just business knowledge, people skill, but it also requires understanding of psychology, philosophy, people management, financial management, marketing, sales, motivating people, empowering people, creating a dream, defining a mission, taking action, intervening at the right time on right issues, ignoring something that is not very critical, eliminate a lot of noise in the environment, and learning to listen to people and understanding who to listen properly, who amplifies voice, who suppresses voice. And it becomes a very complex process and ecosystem in which you have to perform. If the task is very big, you are a very big leader. If the task is very small, you are a small leader. If you're trying to manage a project with 4 people, it's different from mobilizing a country. I mean, leadership today for Trump and Modi and Putin and others is at a different level than corporate leadership. But then there are leaders in social setup, there are leaders in religion, there are political leaders, there are social leaders, there are business leaders, there are education leaders, leaders in health system. So sectors also define leadership. There are science leaders. So in today's ecosystem, how do you operate? Today, tools are very different for leaders than we ever had before. Today, you say something and somebody can go to ChatGPT or any other AI and check it out. What you said makes sense, is true, false, your statement is right, wrong. Instant checks and balances require leader to be on top of everything. So I always advise people that leadership is all about first defining a purpose. A few days ago, I had a meeting at University of Wisconsin with some people on fusion reaction, and we immediately got into discussion on this and that and all. And after about 10 minutes, I said, can we first agree on what is the purpose of this meeting? And everybody sort of backed off because it's easy for us to jump into a conversation and lose it and lose sight of the purpose. So the leaders always have to start with a purpose. What is the purpose of my organization, my assignment, my project, my job? Okay. And when you get to the purpose, then you realize that there are resources attached to it. I have to deliver this, but I have so much time, I have so many people. These are the expectations from different interest groups. Product development may have one interest, marketing may have another interest, finance may have third interest. So how do you integrate all of this? And that requires a lot of communication with different interest groups. And you got to negotiate with them. And you got to develop consensus. That is very demanding for a leader today. In an environment of open communication to develop consensus, where everybody has very strong views on what is right, what is wrong, becomes a challenge at times. So leadership in modern era requires openness, accessibility, connectivity, networking, democratization, decentralization, all of these things that I normally talk about. And it's not as simple as it looks. How do you balance your personality to make sure that you give equal time to all of these things and be open? So you got to be a very good observer. Because if you're not, then somebody will hijack your agenda. Somebody with ability to convince will convince you, but he may not have ability to deliver. So he'll be dragged into a situation where something has been promised but cannot be delivered. So leadership is also a very dedicated full-time job. You can't turn off your mind as a leader and say at 5 o'clock I'm done. It is not a 9 to 5 job. Leader needs personal space. Leader needs to read, reflect, review. And leader also needs to take hard decisions of firing people. I don't know whether I had given this example of Roger McLean, and I'll give you, if I had given you earlier, my apology for repeating it. I had a guy who used to work for me in 70s, Roger McLean, very smart, elegant, man in his 50s then when I was in 30s. And he was head of marketing for me. And Roger was a gentleman, intelligent, but in those days, marketing people always had 2 martini lunch. That was a standard thing for marketing people. And they did most of their business over 2 martini lunch. And Roger and I got into argument. And I kept saying, Roger, I know you don't respect me as much because I'm too young. And to some extent, I'm very different from you. And he would say, no, Sam, that's not true. And finally, our differences intensified to a point. I said, I'm going to fire you. And he said, you can't fire me. I'm your marketing guy. I'm very senior to you, blah, blah, blah. And I had to make a very, very difficult decision. And I fired Roger. And everyone was shocked that Sam could do this. And it was a very painful thing for me to do because our differences were such that we couldn't bring enough orders. And if we can't bring enough orders, we can't sustain the business. And customers also knew that we had huge disagreement on how it should be handled. This led to a point Roger got into alcohol, went through divorce. His two daughters grew up and sort of, went on their own way. And after 4 years, I one day get a call from Roger saying, Sam, this is Roger McLean. He says, and this is true, it's amazing, it's shocking. He said, look, I'm at the door of YMCA in such and such place and I haven't eaten for 2 days. I said, you stay there immediately. I took a car, went to pick him up, got him at home, told Anu to give him towel and all so he could take a bath, fed him, kept it at home for several days. I had another small business called Ionics, making printed circuit boards. Then, so I put him there back at work. So leadership is all about concern for your people. This is never written anywhere. It just happens. You just do it. Because if you can't take care of your people, you can't be a good leader. Roger and I remain very close friends. That incident was very painful, but I learned my lesson. So there are lessons to learn every time, everywhere, at every instant. And leader has to be open to learning. Today, a lot of the business leadership is all about technology and less about people. But at the end of the day, people matter. People make things happen. Technology doesn't make things happen. Technology is just a tool. So for leadership psychology, philosophy, communication are more important tools than how to conduct a Zoom meeting or how to use AI or many other tools that people talk about. Leadership is also about ethical journey. If you're not ethical, people will find out. You will get into a trap somewhere in the future. Leadership is all about character because you got to be consistent. You can't be opportunist and go on changing your story every time. Say something today and then say something tomorrow. And there are so many interesting professors of leadership. One of my favorite ones was Peter Drucker. And he was basically a psychologist. And Peter Drucker, to me, was one of the best management professor in America. If you get to read some of his books, you'll be amazed at how he saw a day-to-day challenge and converted it into a theory of his own, which has affected management teaching for a long, long time. There are many capable professors, young and old, who have their own way of teaching leadership. But unfortunately, leadership today is more about business leaders and less about political leaders, less about social leaders, less about women leaders, less about science leaders. Okay. So there are leaders of all kinds. You got to decide where you position yourself. What do you want to lead? I remember Dhirubhai Ambani very simply said that for a leader, you always need to look back and see if anybody is following you or not. If a large crowd is following you, you know you are a good leader. If nobody is following you, what are you leading? But leaders don't have all the skills. Those who can lead sometimes can't manage. And there's a big difference between managing and leadership. Management is all about getting things done, execution, operation. And leadership is all about giving a dream, empowering people. But you also need a manager to be a leader and leader to be a manager. If you are not a good manager, you can't be a good leader, according to me. And if you are not a good leader, you can't be a good manager. But still, there is a clear distinction between leadership and management. These are all very complex issues. They look trivial. But when you are on the ground and you are managing and you are leading, somebody else can point to you that, you're not a good listener. Yeah, you don't do this well. Until then, you probably don't even realize. I believe if you really want to understand and learn leadership, you not only need to learn about the leadership itself, but also need to have understanding of one product. Product could be physical, could be service, it could be political, it could be social, it could be scientific, whatever it is. Then you need to understand your market. You need to be able to sell that idea, a product. So sales. You need to look at the financial implication, finance. You need to innovate. You need to manage human resource. You need to really have strategies. So you need about 10, 12 key disciplines, from finance to marketing to sales to strategy to innovations to entrepreneurship, operation, and you can't ignore any. You got to have some basic understanding of all of these things to be a good leader. A good leadership doesn't happen in vacuum. It happens on the ground, because ultimately you have to deliver. If you don't deliver, people say, this guy is a failure in leadership. Today, public leadership is complex. You saw last week what happened. A young leader who was articulating his views got shot. He got shot because his views were seen as one extreme. So leaders also have threat in the corporate world also. They get challenged. Some get shot. You've seen in US, the health insurance leader got shot, okay, for no fault of his. But his policies were seen by somebody as unacceptable. So as a leader, you are in public space and you got to worry about how public perceives you. Look at even a leader like Gandhi got killed because somebody perceived him very differently. And this is the price you pay for a leadership. Not everyone is cut out to be a leader. Everybody wants to be a leader, but it's not an easy space. So, leadership is a very complex discipline. And if you really want to understand and study leadership, like I said, you got to study every vertical as well. Take, for example, innovation. Who innovates? Why do they innovate? What does innovation mean? How do innovations take place? How do you nurture innovation in the company or in social setup? Similarly, you got to study market. You got to study products. You got to study how to build team, how to motivate teams. When we were working at C Dot in early days, they were all young people. Average age was 23, and I realized that to motivate them, we must meet every month. So I would meet with 400 people every month, and we'll have a 2-hour meeting with everybody, where I would give them, along with my colleagues, a status report, where we are, what we have done, what we should be doing, what do we plan to do next month. And people will ask questions. And some people would, uh, make it difficult for you. But that was their time to vent, ask questions, get angry, and get the heat out. And this regular monthly meeting became a very important platform to empower everybody, to meet everyone for a tea. In the beginning, people thought these 2-3 hours was a waste of time. And then they realized, oh my God, this is more productive than they had ever thought. So you also have to experiment with a lot of these things. And there are always people problem to solve for leaders. Conflict resolution is very important part of leadership. Because by the time it comes to you as a leader, it is a problem. If it is not a problem, it doesn't come to you. So you must every day expect that you'll have 5-10 problems to solve. And a lot of these would be people problem, perception problem, priority problems, planning problems, budget problems. And you constantly have to really work in resolving conflicts. And there are no set rules on how to resolve conflicts. But if your purpose is clear, if your long term vision is clear, if your values are clear, then conflict resolution becomes easier. So, leadership is a lesson in learning. It's a process more so than a product. What makes sense today doesn't make sense tomorrow. And what made sense in the past may not make sense in the future. So, it's also very time bound. But at the same time, the fundamental values don't change. You can't keep lying and be a good leader. You can't be cheating and be a good leader. You can't be disrespecting people and be a good leader. But then you will turn around and say all of the leaders today lie, cheat, disrespect people. So there is a contradiction here. But leadership world over is also changing. People get away with all of these things because they have money, power, and profit, as I have said, drive global agenda today. And those who have power and profit as their key focus control institutions, individuals, money, media, and leadership gets distorted. Hope that in the future AI will help develop the right kind of leaders that future would need, where purpose would be more to build equitable, sustainable environment in the world and not a system where inequality keeps increasing. These are all very large global leadership challenges. We'll see how we evolve. But leadership has to be in the minds or on the minds of everyone. Because, in a sense, each one is a leader of their own journey. They decide what journey and how they are going to take that journey, who will participate in that journey and who will not. So, I would say leadership is something we should always keep learning and talking, because every time we talk, something new will appear on the horizon for us to explore. With this, I would open up for a question answer and conversation. Premada, is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for that insight. And as you said, we'll continue to talk about this leadership topic days on. So we have a first question from Paul. So he's asking, should leadership be fueled by money and muscle be challenged and brought down? Because currently, world over, we are facing this problem that power and money control basically every country. And so, how to resolve this problem?
Well, the answer would be yes, it should be challenged, should be brought down. But how practical it is for you and me is an issue. I mean, look at what happened in Nepal, is an example of the leadership brought down, challenged, because people of Nepal felt, some people, that the issues had gotten out of hand to a point. Rich had their privilege and poor were completely ignored. Similar thing happened in Arab Spring. Similar things have happened in many other parts of the world. But those things are possible in a smaller little place than in a nation like India. India is too big, too strong, too diverse, too complex, you know. So if you're thinking of challenging muscles and money power in India, it's a very complex process. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Kiran. So basically, what we lack in India is the power of questioning. So if the students question, they are like they are not allowed to, especially in schools and colleges. So how do you think business leaders in business in India would learn to, respect the personal time and space of their employees, and also who are led to make more efficient and productive?
Kiran, it begins at home. Parents do not allow children to question. I remember when my daughter was 7 years old, one day she said, "Dad, this is not fair." And I was shaken up. I never thought that a 7 year old child could tell your father that you are not fair. She was right, I was wrong. And I learned that lesson. So I think we need to encourage at very early age our own children to question, be curious, challenge, and accommodate at the same time their curiosity. So asking question is an important part of growing up. It is an important part of education culture, as you say. But people don't encourage questioning in India. Curiosity is not encouraged. At the end, people say, this is God given. Your destiny is already written. Don't worry about it. Okay. And a lot of these things are rooted in our custom. because there is very little scientific, logical thinking. You need logical approach to life. You have to believe in Darwin theory. You have to believe in science, and you can't say God created us. Okay, fine. There are questions unanswered, so we go to God. Sort of the concept of God, saying I can't answer, so I leave it to somebody else. But you got to have a scientific approach to life. You got to have reasoning, and you got to encourage that early in life. Okay, and I agree. People learn by asking questions, more questions. Absolutely. But those questions are towards finding the truth and not towards attacking each other. Okay. I mean, you could be asking questions which are sensible, reasonable, exploring, or you could be asking questions which are personal, insulting, irritating. So it all depends what questions you are asking. Okay. Thanks.
So the second part of a question is that how do you make your employees more productive and efficient?
How can leader in business India learn to respect the person time
Yeah,
and space
and
on their own employee, those who are led to make them more efficient and
efficient
productive?
and productive.
I mean, personal time is part of learning, is part of growing up. Personal time is not wasted. Okay. Just because they employ you doesn't mean that they own you for all your time and energy. You also have to grow. So you have to say, look, this personal time is part of the process of growing up. Okay. And business leaders will have to learn that I need my own space to breathe and grow. Okay? And sometimes you have to sit down with the leaders and explain to them that I'm not against you. I may be against your ideas. Okay, that doesn't mean I'm against you. In India, I find that people cannot distinguish between criticizing their idea and criticizing them. When you criticize their idea, they think you are criticizing them. Okay. It's a big difference and distinction. Okay. So
So next question is, so as you said, AI would help to resolve the leadership conflicts, but how also we can involve our Gen Z in India to a totally new perspective and who don't believe in the traditional politics? How can we transform ourselves to their perspective?
it depends on what you call traditional politics. Okay. Traditional politics, if it relates to sort of, you know, perk, privilege, and patronage, as opposed to productivity and efficiency, I agree that the traditional politics of perk, privilege, and patronage has to go. You know, I mean, in Nepal, the crisis is there because people believe that all of the politicians and bureaucrats have their children abroad and having good time, and local people are completely ignored. That's an angle. And if that is traditional politics, of course it will be resisted. Okay. Generation Z is also not very clear on what they want, how they want to contribute. Okay. It's not about all the gadgets. Give me iPhone and give me Facebook and give me this social media, and I'll be happy. It's also worrying about quality of life, food, shelter, clothing, job, education, health, environment. Okay. All of these are important issues. Yeah. How can we transform ourselves and their perspective is through better communication. We don't have these kinds of dialogues. We need these kinds of dialogues at district level, at village level, at city level. Okay. I mean, if you don't have these kinds of dialogues, then how do you understand each other? You take a city of Kanpur, for example. How many of these kind of dialogues would be there in city of Kanpur or Hyderabad? Okay, you need hundreds and hundreds of people having these kinds of conversations on variety of subjects. Okay, we don't have that well organized. Okay. So we sometimes form opinion based on misinformation. Okay, and that creates again more conflict. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next question is from Chav Chat. I don't know what his name is. So, what is the most important aspect of a leader, which is always be there in every decision, action, in aspect of inclusive and sustainable in all life aspects? So, basically, what's the
Value,
important?
value. What do you value? What do you value in life? Okay, and ultimately character. What kind of a person are you? Okay, do you value shortcuts and quick profit, or you value truth and trust and love, okay, and respect for other human being? Okay, um, these are the fundamental values, and I look to Gandhi for leadership lessons. Okay, Gandhi's leadership style was very different, and I think that style is also applicable in business. It's not just a political leadership. Okay, um, it's a leadership that is applicable to everything and everywhere. Okay, because it's so very fundamental and central in sustainability and inclusion. Gandhi's leadership was based on two fundamental issues: sustainability and inclusion. And those things are very important today. We are beginning to recognize. Then we never saw it that way. Then we saw it only in terms of independence movement. Okay. But that was designed for sustainability. And it was designed so that the people from bottom of the economic pyramid can be lifted. So that was inclusion. Okay. And everyone has to be respected. Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christian, doesn't matter. That's inclusion. Yeah. And when you move away from those ideas, you create conflict. Part conflict in India today about Hindu Rashtra is about that inclusion aspect.
So then, how did we digress? Just an add-in question. How did we digress from Gandhiji's leadership to what we are today? Like electing an authoritarian
I think we
regime.
forgot Gandhi too early. Okay. We thought, oh, Gandhi's job is done. We got the independence. It's over. We didn't pay enough attention about Gandhi's vision of humanity. Yeah. Gandhi is more relevant today than ever before in the history of mankind. Look at violence going on all over the world. Gandhi's non-violence, Gandhi's new tools of satyagraha, okay, Gandhi's emphasis on truth and trust and love. I mean, those are very important issues even today. Okay. Everybody talks about Gandhi. Nobody wants to practice Gandhi. Simplicity. Okay, guy would be talking about Gandhi and would be wearing $100,000 watch, and he's supposed to be a political leader. That's a funny thing. Okay, but that's the way the world works today, and people respect that. Okay.
Absolutely, sir. And it's an irony that where Gandhiji was like born and where he led his freedom movement, the same country mocks and ridicules him in in um, in some aspects, in some portions of the society. So that's
Sure,
a really
sure,
tragedy. So
absolutely.
the next question is again from Paul. Is asking how do we promote entrepreneurship amongst our youth and with leadership qualities, and how can we support them?
Well, youth will have to figure out, what is needed in the community. Okay, entrepreneurship comes from identifying a need. Okay, is there a business opportunity in food, shelter, clothing, manufacturing, products, services, whatever. And entrepreneurs have to first find something that people want to buy and pay more than what it takes to make. Then it is sustainable. Otherwise, it is not sustainable. Okay. Entrepreneurs cannot be created in vacuum. They have to be created around product and service that people want to buy. Okay. So you have to go in a community and find out what is that people want. And can you make it? Will you make it? What does it take to make it? Okay. And then comes entrepreneurship and leadership. Okay. You can't create entrepreneurs and leaders when there's nothing, they don't know what to do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So there's a comment from Kiran Kumar. We so he's saying the importance and the fundamental values plus the lived experiences cannot be overstated in molding the decision making capabilities of leaders. So it's just a comment. So what do you think about the whole concept of lack of empathy in today's leaders,
Big
which
problem.
we
Big problem. Okay. Yeah. I think I agree with Kiran Kumar that importance of fundamental values, the lived experience cannot be overstated in molding the decision making capability of a leader. Okay. Agree. But how do you build empathy? You know, see, it has to come from within. You know, what I liked about Gandhiji's whole approach was that he would have a lot of internalization. You got to internalize a problem. You got to think a lot about what you're trying to solve. And when you get up to address that problem is basically solved because you have gone through all the thought process to internalize it. And you know now you are committed to get this done.
so your message to the young and the youth who are aspiring to be the leaders of the future before we wind up today's session.
Premada, my message doesn't change. And my message, as I have said before, perhaps, is to build a good self. Very few people build good self. Self that is respectful, dignified, honest, loving, caring. People are quick to find faults in others. People are negative. People think it's a great talent to identify problems. Okay. That's not what we want in young people. We want them to first build self that is comfortable. Then you can tackle all the problems. But if you're not comfortable with yourself, how can you deal with others? Most of the people are not comfortable with themselves. So they find faults in others. And you got to acquire knowledge. How many people are knowledgeable? They don't know anything about anything. Okay, but they think they are the best of the best. They have advice for prime ministers, and they have advice for you, and they have advice for everybody. What have you done? I can't get a job. Okay, I mean, what kind of a person is that who can't get a job but is ready to advise the world? So the difference between their energy and their expectation is very large. See, your energy and expectations have to be aligned. Okay. I know that my energy is here, my education, my experience is here, and my expectations can't be way out. It has to be aligned. Then I take the next step. Then I take the next step. Okay. So my advice to young people is build a good self. Be aware of yourself. See your deficiencies. Understand what needs to be done. Okay. So it is important. Hello, are you there?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
So, do you have time for a last question?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So there's a question from Vivian. Given today's complex political environment, what innovative leadership strategies can young aspirants without political lineage adopt to establish credibility, inspire trust, and make meaningful impact in public life?
Build a good self. Build a self that is grounded in reality, a self that as soon as you go into a group, people will say, ah, this guy is different. This lady is different. Okay. You can automatically get respect from everybody if you have good self. If you are not a good self, you are seen as a bitcher who constantly bitches and complains and criticizes everybody. People will know that there is a problem here. And most of the people don't see that they have a blind spot for themselves. Okay. They think they are perfect, everybody else is the problem. In reality, they are the problem, everybody else is perfect. Okay. But that's the world we live in. What can you do? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So we will meet next time again. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Upendra.
Thank you.
Thank you.